We were going to South Africa, and they didn't need me. I got a phone call from a colonel, and I had written to them in Regina, and he said he was in the hotel in Saskatoon, and would I like to come down for an interview? I said, well, I'd be delighted. So within a few days, I became a member of the Royal Canadian Army Medical Corps.
This changed how Canada viewed the role of women and how Canadian women saw themselves. With so many men away in the armed forces, thousands of women put on overalls and went to work in wartime factories. The last civilian car rolled off the assembly lines in early 1942. For the rest of the war, Canadian factories were devoted to defense production.
I wanted to go to work. I was 15 years old, and you had to be 18 to work there. I changed the date on it to make myself 18 and went and applied for a job at John Ingls. It was a different time, a different place. Everything was different, even the terminology. There wasn't anything called political correctness then. The attitudes toward women were quite different at that time.
Joan Canuck has forsaken vogue and Vanity Fair for blueprints and construction plans. The frilly dresses and fancy hairdos of pre-war days have given way to overalls and workers' caps. After the war, a barrage of red-hot rivets may take the place of the traditional rolling pin as feminine weapon Mark I when hubby comes home late. When it comes to fixing the gas stove or the family bus, the boys will have to take a back seat. When victory is won, a great share of the credit will be due to our fair Amazons in overalls.
A friend of mine came and said to me, Joyce, why don't you come down and work in the shipyard? She said, and I said, oh, me work in the shipyard? I don't know anything about that. She said, well, nor do any of us. But that was really just, it was a job, you know, and as a matter of fact, I had never worked before. I'd always been at home. You get a little bit attached. And I thought to myself, well, I'm a little piece of that. I'm a little bit of that boat. I hope it doesn't, nothing happens to it. And the crew came back a week afterwards, after she'd gone out. And I said, what are you doing here? Well, he said, she's at the bottom. And I felt sad.
Ships went down, but the flood of wartime products continued and grew. Every month, 98 million rounds of ammunition, over 2 million shells. And every 4 days, another 10,000-ton cargo ship to join the huge convoys that kept plowing across the stormy North Atlantic.
You just became very conscious of the cruelty of the sea. This was really the first impression that you gained. Landlubbers thought these fellows that had been at sea were giving you a song. But you learned to respect the sea very much.
When war was declared, the Royal Canadian Navy had a grand total of 6 destroyers. By the end of the war, the Navy had 471 fighting ships. The convoys faced more than fierce weather. Enemy U-boats prowled the shipping lanes. The wolf packs roamed freely. Ships were torpedoed in the St. Lawrence River and a few miles from Halifax. 23 ships were sunk in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, killing 700 seamen.
These were difficult years. In Convoy SC-107, for instance, which was perhaps the worst mauled convoy of the war, we lost 16 ships in one crossing. You just can't see a ship sink without deep emotion. really deep emotion. There's something about a ship. It has a soul. Don't give a damn what the theologians say. I know better.
In June 1942, an Allied ship went to the bottom every 4 hours.
The worst thing that I think that we could imagine is seeing a tanker loaded in high octane being fished, you know, and going up like a rocket. Or men in the water, covered in oil. Probably more dead than alive. Probably what sticks out most is what happens to you most. And that's the free time when nothing is happening. You know, and you start thinking about where else you'd rather be than here. I think that's what I remember mostly, you know.
In the Second World War, almost 3,000 convoys crossed the Atlantic. Some of the Canadian soldiers, waiting impatiently in England, were finally sent into battle. And the headlines, at first, tried to hail it as a victory. August 19, 1942. Under pressure from home, pressure from within, pressure from Allied leaders, Canada's 2nd Division made up most of a raiding force, sent across the Channel to the German-held port of Dieppe. The aim? Take the beach, penetrate the town, offer show of force, and then withdraw to England. The plan went tragically wrong. Of the almost 5,000 Canadians at Dieppe, 900 were killed, 2,000 taken prisoner, and many who did get back were badly wounded.
Well, another nurse and I were assigned to number 1 Canadian General Hospital, and this was not long after we reached England, well before breakfast time. There was the alert, and we were all called on duty, and we got down to see the casualties were starting to arrive from Dieppe. So the attack had started in the morning, and we were getting casualties before lunchtime. It was quite an impressive thing. A frightening thing to see these people. We saw real casualties for the first time. I was angry first because I thought, why do these men have to suffer so? Oh, everything was there right in front of our eyes. And I just said to myself, boy, this is going to be hard to take.
The Germans mocked the Dieppe raid as the work of amateurs. Defeat gave way to determination, and it was back to intensive training. Almost a year later, in July 1943, another much larger Canadian force was prepared for battle. The division sent 90,000 men to join Field Marshal Montgomery's 8th Army in an invasion of the island of Sicily.
The Prime Minister, the Right Honourable W.L. Mackenzie King, has an important message for the people of Canada.